Thereupon he arose in the hands of the midwife, opened his mouth, and conversed with the Lord of righteousness. And his father Lamech was afraid of him, and fled, and came to his father Methuselah. And he said unto him, I have begotten a strange son, diverse from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the God of heaven. And his nature is different, and he is not like us. And his eyes are as the rays of the sun, and his countenance is glorious. And it seems to me that he is not sprung from me, but from the angels. And I fear that in his days a wonder may be wrought on the earth. And now, my father, I am here to petition thee and implore thee that thou mayest go to Enoch our father and learn from him the truth, for his dwelling place is amongst the angels.
If a black couple has an albino child today, is that child considered black or white? We all know that they're still considered black, even with the presence of white skin. This albino offspring is still capable of producing children.
All right. Well, once again, I want to say Shabbat Shalom to you all, family. And I want to welcome you back. I'm going to ask if you're using a phone line, just make sure for me that your phone is muted. I'm getting a shh in the room, and it's going to impact the recording quite a bit. So if you're using a phone line, just make sure that on your end the phone is muted for me, please, family. I don't want to mute all from my end, because then if you're on the phone and you want to get into the conversation and I have you muted, I can't tell that you want to get in, and you won't be able to get in. So I don't want to mute it from my end. So just check your phones, make sure all the lines are muted. I'm going to just go one by one, try to figure out exactly where it's coming from, and then I can tell who the person. Okay, so it's 217. Yeah, so it's 217. Okay, there we go. All right, good. So the sound is gone. All right. Okay, yes, so welcome back, everyone. It is my hope that you enjoyed your break, your meal, your refreshment, and you enjoyed the documentary that was on during the break. What am I doing? I think that's not what I meant to do. Hold on, let me get this back. not what I meant to do there. So let me just get back to, okay. Bear with me just for a second, please, family. All right. Bear with me just for a second. Okay, let's go here. Okay, yes, he had messaged me earlier, Aki, while I was on Facebook. He said that he wouldn't be here today. He had some reading that he was trying to catch up on. So um, I did speak with him earlier. Yes. All right. So we're going to get back to to our study here from the book of First Samuel. You're welcome, Daki. You're welcome, Daki. To that for asking also. Um, we're gonna get back to First Samuel chapter 4 is where we're going now. Okay, again, we're on the subject of Adam's role, the man's role in Yashar'Al. And so we're going to First Samuel chapter 4 because and I believe that what chapter 4 will show is that when we as men fail to function in the role that we are expected to by Yahuah to function in, then it not just affect us individually, it not just affect our children, but it affects an entire nation, right? And so when we as individuals fail to do what we are expected to do, even as individuals, it does not just affect us individually, but it affects the entire nation. It affects the entire nation. We can look even at, for example, the book of Yahusha, aka Joshua, chapter 8, with Achan, when he disobeyed Yahuah. It did not only affect him, it affected the nation of Yashar'Al. It affected his household, it affected his entire family, it affected the nation. And so, you know, we can say, somebody once said, no man is an island, and certainly it's true. Um, we cannot look at ourselves from an individualistic perspective. We cannot be self-centered. We talked about the fact earlier that Hannah, she made national sacrifice by giving up her son, her only son. She was making a national sacrifice. She did it for the good of the nation, you see. Unfortunately, today, we as a people, we don't think from a national perspective. And that's true whether it be people of Yashar'Al, people coming to a knowledge of who they are, or people of Yashar'Al who don't know who they are. You see, we do not think on a national perspective. We do not think about each other from a national perspective. Family, give me just a second. I'm trying to reconnect using my wife's tablet so I can be able to monitor YouTube. So bear with me just for a second. I've got the kids stole the charger. I got to find it back so I can so that I can reconnect to YouTube. Okay, I got to plug this tablet up. So bear with me. I'm going to put a song on while I try to get this together. Okay, so bear with me just for a second. I hope I don't lose my thought. But let me just put some music on here very quickly while I try to work this out, while I get it together. I'd like to be able to connect, to be able to monitor YouTube as we go through the rest of our lesson. You can bear with me here just for a moment. I got to see who has the charger. Wow.
You know, Geico's been around for over 75 years.
So that every mouth can be fed. Oh, me Israelites get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Oh, Israelites. And my kids and I leave. God, you said I was the after see. Shut them a tear up choices ago. I don't want to end up like Bonnie and Clyde. After a song, there must be a call. In the farm, you saw your in the morning, sleeping for bread, so that your every mouth can and I leave. That she said that was the answer my tear up, choices ago. I don't want to send a back on it and there must be a car in the farm. You sound your loud.
Yes, it's the Israelites. More properly, it is Yashar'Al, and that is Desmond Decker telling the story of Yashar'Al. This song was from back in 1968, basically explaining to our people why it is that we're going through the things that we're going through. That's what the song is all about. Wake up in the morning begging for bread so that every mouth can be fed. Every day is a struggle for the people of Yashar'Al living under the curse. And so that's what the song is all about. And welcome back to each and every one of you, family. To the family on YouTube, I want to say welcome back and Shabbat Shalom once again. I wanted to just reconnect so I can, see if you have any comments as we go on, our questions as we continue in our study. And so I had to take a break to get that established. All right. So sorry for the interruption, but it was an important one. And so welcome back. Welcome back. Yes, with reggae music, because it is reggae. It's Desmond Decker, he's Jamaican. And with reggae music, a lot of people dance to reggae music, but they don't listen to the message of reggae music. And not talking about the stuff that the young kids are singing today. These young people are singing, they're just singing garbage. They're singing foolishness. There is no method, no message. It's just nonsense that they're singing today. But if you listen to the older songs, all of it is filled with the history of our people and the message to our people, all of it. But a lot of people dance to it but don't listen to what's being said. And it's a music with a message. You know, it's a music with a message. So that's always been what it is, a music with a message. But unfortunately, a lot of people, they listen to the rhythm and miss the message, you see, unfortunately. But yes, indeed, it's a music with a message. Okay. We're going to pick up now from where we left off, family, talking about the role of a man. And when we fail to do what we are supposed to do, our families suffer, we suffer, but the nation suffer. And we've got to begin to think from a national perspective. We've got to think from a national perspective. Okay, we've got to begin to think from a national perspective. But let me back up a little bit now before we go back to Shamuel. And I want to bring in a man who thought from a national perspective, right? Because what happened is we have to recognize that the scriptures for us, it is our way of life. The scriptures for us, it's a constitution. It's not religion. It's not religion. The scriptures is our way of life. It is our constitution. And when we begin to see it as such, then we take on a different mindset, you see. We take on a national mindset. Now, in the book of Maccabees, there was a man. As a matter of fact, during his day, you had a lot of people in Yashar'Al. Yashar'Al had become splintered during the time of Maccabees, the Maccabees. And so Yashar'Al was splintered, and a lot of people was following a lot of different beliefs, a lot of different doctrines, a lot of different individuals. And so Yashar'Al, because of disobedience, had become a splintered group, a splintered nation, more divided than just two houses, you see. More divided than even just two houses. And really, family, it's the same situation that we're in today. The people of Yashar'Al right now, it's not two houses. We have all kinds of houses, all kinds of camps, all kinds of whatever. Yashar'Al today is so splintered, it's not even two houses. You see, we're just totally divided. Nonetheless, that will not always be the case. You see, the elect of Yahuah will come together. The elect of Yahuah will come together, you see. But during the time of Maccabees, there was, Yashar'Al was really splintered. And you had people who, for them, the scriptures was about religion, you see. For them, for a group of people, the scriptures, for a lot of people, the scriptures was about religion. But then there was a man who recognized, who saw the scriptures for what it is and recognized that it's not religion. But number one, it's a way of life for my people. And number two, it's our constitution. It's our constitution. And so when the enemy came against him, there were some people who saw the scriptures as religion and was working to keep a religion, and they just laid down, the men laid down and allowed the enemy to roll over them, slaughtered men, women, and children, and did nothing. The men did nothing about it because they were practicing religion. But then you had the Maccabees, who saw the scriptures as a way of life, who saw the scriptures as Yahuah's instruction to them on how to live, how to survive, how to thrive. You see, saw it as a constitution of a nation, as the constitution of a nation. And he treated it that way. And so when the enemy came, he looked to his constitution, recognizing that if Yahuah had given us a constitution, it meant that he certainly expected for there to be a nation, and he did not expect for us to just roll over, lay down, and let the enemy trample over us and keep on rolling. And so Maccabees and his sons decided to take a stand. They took a stand against the enemy, while other people criticized them. and Yahuah gave a small group of men victory over a large enemy. Okay, now we're talking about the role of men in Yashar'Al. And so before I go back to Shamuel, I want to go over to the book of Maccabees. Okay, I want to go to First Maccabees, and it's important for us to study the writings of Maccabees. Do you know that the history that white people have taken and twisted are the writings of our people? Well, you were just watching the documentary, and I'm sure many of us here know this, but it's the book of Maccabees. They took that writing and whitewashed it. You see, so let's go back to the writings for a minute. We're talking about the role of men in Yashar'Al, Adam's role in Yashar'Al, the man's role in Yashar'Al. What is Yahuah's expectation of us? How should we see his word to us? Okay, so let's go to that. We're going to go to First Maccabees, and we don't have time to go through all of it, and certainly we need to study these writings because they're important to our people right now in the time that we're living. Our people need to become reacquainted with these writings. Our people need to become reacquainted with these truths. Yes, indeed, Aki. I'm going to be putting it up on the screen. I did have I have a particular translation that I like to use, but I'm not using the computer. I lost it, so I've got to find it again. But I'm going to be putting it on the screen as I read. So bear with me just for a second, family. You'll be able to follow me as I read. I'm going to put that on the screen. Just bear with me here. I'm going to be putting it on the screen. I'll tell you, it's hot where I'm at today. We're brushing up against 100. It's very hot and humid. I'm feeling the heat. You know, I have a grand aunt. She grew up in England for many, many years. She lived in England for many, many years. She lived there for just about the most of her life. But then when she got older and retired, she moved back to Jamaica. And she would ask us, not just me. She would be sweating. She would be really sweating, and then she would say to us, she would ask us by name, you know. She'd say to me, I was a little kid, but she would say, Mikey, you feel the heat? And I'd say, no, auntie. And she'd say, boy, you're dead to blast, man. You're dead to blast. You know, that was her thing. She would tell us we're dead to blast. So she would be sweating like crazy, asking us if we feel the heat, and we, being accustomed to the heat, would say, no, auntie. And she would tell us we're dead to blast. So yeah, I feel like that. I feel like asking somebody, you feel the heat? And, you know, you're dead to blast. So we're going to First Maccabees. I'm going to begin here in chapter 1. This is the history of our people. This is our history, family. And I'm going to purchase some books for the Haykal that I'm going to be using. I could go through the history without purchasing these books, but I wanted to purchase the books in hopes of putting them on the screen and showing people. These are to show you how they have whitewashed history, okay? But I could do it without purchasing the books, but I want to use the books to show. But First Maccabees, chapter 1, they say Maccabees, and that's the Europeanization of the names. His name is Maccabeus. For example, when you see Josephus, when you see the name Josephus, his name is not Josephus. Josephus was not a white person. Josephus was not a Caucasian. Josephus was not a European. Josephus was a young man of Yashar'Al. His name is not Josephus. His name is Yahusha. Okay? Yahusha. Okay? His name is Yahusha. All right? Now, whoa. 109 there in Colton, California. Wow. Amazing, Aki. Wow. Wow. Yeah, we are brushing up against 100 here. It feels more like, I guess, the feel-like temperature is around 105 or something like that. But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I had a question.
But even with the air conditioner going here, I feel like there ain't no air on, and I'm sitting right under it. And so it's quite hot. Oh, I see, Aki. You're in the Bay Area. Yes. Woo, 100 in Tampa, Florida. Wow. Yes, yes. So I'm using sacredtext.com. It's not the one that I always use, that I usually use. Yes, Akud Kaz. Yep. Yep. For the next few days, that's where we will be. We'll be in the hundreds here in New Jersey. Yes. Yep, quite unusual. Yes, indeed. But we're living in the days of the unusual. And, for that we say hallelujah. Yes, indeed. We praise Yahuah when we see us living in the days of the unusual. Yeah, that's normal for a Kud Yariya there in she live in the desert. She's in Arizona, yes. Yeah, yes. Okay. I'm looking at Aki Edwards' comment there in the Bay Area. He said in Sacramento, he was asking what's the weather like in Sacramento. All right, so it's amazing how our family here, all the places represented here between the family here on Fuse and on YouTube. We're all over the place. We just before we went to break, we had family joining us from the Bahamas. We have family who normally join us from South America and other places, South Africa and so on. So I praise Yahuah for making it possible and bringing us together, bringing his people together. Yes, indeed. All right. So I'm reading from sacredtext.com is where I am. Sacredtext.com. It's not the translation I usually use, but I don't remember that link because I lost it because of computer problems. But this is what I'm going to read. Now, so we're talking about the Maccabeuses, okay? And you got to understand that when people talk about Alexander the Great and these different rulers, what I want you to understand, family, most of their history they get from these writings right here. Do not think that they get it from somewhere else. So, and the reason why I'm pointing this out, and that's a fact, most of their history about Alexander the Great and his exploits, a lot of the history that they get about, we talked a few weeks ago about, what's his name, the black guy, trying to get my wife to remember. She looked at me like, what was his name again? We were talking about.
You and I, or us in the room?
We were talking in the room. I put a video on about him. It's a black guy that a lot of times they portray him to be white, but he was actually black. Forget his name.
It started with H.
Yeah.
I want to say Hercules, but then
no. I forget his name now, but
they have it's actually a show.
Yeah.
It's a white guy who he did some bad stuff. Hannibal.
Yeah, Cannibal. Yep. His name is Cannibal. But a lot of the history about Hannibal and his exploits, and even the Roman exploit at that time, a lot of that history they take from Yahusaf's writings or Josephus' writings. So one of the writings that we're going to pay attention to as we look at history and put history back in its right place. For example, Yahusha, there's a book called a body of writing by Yahusha, who they call Josephus, called the way they titled it is the War of the Jews, but it's actually not the War of the Jews. That wouldn't be the title. The War of the Yahudi. All right, the War of the Yahudim. Okay, the Wars of the Yahudim, and it chronicles the different wars of Yashar'Al. These are historical writings, and a lot of the writings that these people present are actually based on these texts that they tell us not to read. So you're told not to read this book, the book of Maccabees. You're told not to read it. You see why? Because by reading these writings, it exposed too many facts to you. It exposed too much truth about you to you. So you're told not to read this, you see. Well, we're going to read it, right? And I don't have time to read the whole thing, but as we talk about the role of a man's role, or the man's role in Yashar'Al, I want to highlight a few things from these writings here, okay? So we're reading from the book of Maccabees. Family on Fuse YouTube, I believe YouTube is able to see it. The family on Fuse, I believe you're able to see it. Let me know if I need to make the font any bigger. Give me just a second. Let me see the chat. Let me know if I need to make the fonts any bigger here, family.
I'm looking for in
okay,
this
good.
Book that I'm reading, Mike,
Mm-hmm.
where you get where the breakdown came in the Sadducees, the Pharisees,
Mm-hmm. The scenes and so on.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking for that. So
okay.
you can read that one.
All right. So and it happened. This is verse 1 of First Maccabees chapter 1. And it happened after that Alexander, this is speaking of Alexander the Great, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Catum. Pay attention to Catum. They say Shittim, they say Catum. They present it as different things. Catum is a European little island on the Greek coast, okay, on the Greek coast. Also, let me tell y'all now, because you see Deuteronomy chapter 28, in Deuteronomy chapter 28, Yahuah tells us that he's going to take us into captivity by ships. Okay, that's in Dabarim, Deuteronomy chapter 28. In Bamadabar, in Numbers chapter 28, he tells us specifically who was going to take us into slavery with ships. And he said that the people of Catum, or Chittim, as they would say, would take us into slavery by ships. In other words, what Yahuah is telling us in the book of Numbers is that it is the Europeans that would take Yashar'Al into slavery by ships. Okay, so in Deuteronomy chapter 28, it tells us that he would take us into bondage by ships. In the book of Numbers, he tells us who exactly, precisely, would take Yashar'Al into bondage by ship. Now, there's a reason why I'm pointing this out. Now, here it is. In the book of Maccabees, we see Chittim, Catum, whatever we call him, is being spoken of here. And it tells you now what region this is in. This is Europe. This is Greece. Okay? But again, I'm highlighting this for the people, because there are people out there who ain't getting it. Okay? There are people out there talking about Yahuah, calling on Yahuah, but they're conflicted. They're conflicted about the true people of the book. Okay? And every opportunity I get, I'm going to make it plain, because I want them to know, and I want my people to know, that you will have no excuse. Because Yahuah is making it so everybody here and knows. Okay? So again, Yahuah said that he's going to use the Europeans to bring Yashar'Al into slavery by ships. We are the only people who fulfill that prophecy. Okay? So where is Kittim? Wow. Wow. Oh, now we have hail outside, family. It's hailing outside. It's storming outside, and hail's coming down. So it's Yeah, I was wondering what that was. Yeah, so it's not just hot, very hot. Now we have hail going outside. Um, but so I want to highlight these things now. So Alexander the Great is who this is speaking about. Okay, the European conquistador. Okay, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Kittim, had smitten Darius, actually the Rosh. I'm sorry, I thought I heard someone. King of Persia and Medes, the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead he reigned in his place, the first over Greece. So Alexander was the first emperor of Greece. Okay, so this is what happened, and it's important to get this information to understand this, because when you get this, when you understand this, you also understand the prophecies of Daniel. You see, because the prophecies of Daniel, contrary to how Christianity teaches them, the prophecies of Daniel is about emperors that Yahuah would raise up over a period of time. The horns that we read of in the book of Daniel is about the different emperors that would arise over a period of time and how Yahuah would use them in the life of Yashar'Al. Okay, so these writings, these scriptures are preserved for our knowing, and it is important for us to know them and to understand how they tie together. So Alexander the Great and history, well, everybody else agree with this, okay, is the first became ruler over Greece. Okay, he became the first emperor over Greece. Okay, so he defeated, after Darash defeated Nebuchadnezzar and became emperor over the Medes and the Persians. Then came Alexander the Great, who defeated the Medes and the Persians and became the next world emperor, became the next world superpower. Okay, so he became the first over Greece and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. By the way, Alexander the Great was as fruity as they came. Okay, he had one of his he was a homosexual, and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, in so much that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, army, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. Okay, so he would conquer countries and kings, and they would pay taxes to him. Okay, and after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Okay, so when he got back home, he fell sick, and pretty soon he was going to die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. Okay, this is where he divided his kingdoms. This is where, if you're studying history, this is where the Asmonean dynasty comes in. This is where the Seleucids comes in. This is where the Seleucid, and then you have the Ptolemy emperors come in. These are the generals of Alexander the Great, who the lands were divided up against. So the Seleucids took over Yashar'Al. General Seleucid took over Yashar'Al. Ptolemy took over Mitzrayim, and different generals took over different territories. Okay, now, so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. In the 12 years that he reigned, he accomplished a whole lot. He was wicked. His heart was prideful. He was wicked. He was ruthless. And so he conquered many kings because of his ruthlessness. Okay? He was one of the what they call them, the locust that Yahuah prophesied about. Just like Europe was one of the locusts, or England was one of the locusts, America being one of the locusts, he was one of the locusts that Yahuah prophesied about. Okay, the armies, the wicked armies that would rise up and devour everything and everyone in its path. Okay, so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bear rule, everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome. And he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Yashar'Al wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a contract with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. Now, who came out of Yashar'Al? Wicked men. Wicked men. Talking about the role of men. Okay, so in verse 11, in those days went there out of Yashar'Al wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a contract with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, notice now, not since we departed from Yahuah, but since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. You see, this is a people who had totally forgotten Yahuah. These are men who had forgotten Yahuah. Okay? And so they associate their suffering, they blame it on having departed from the heathen. Because they don't have strong enough political ties with the heathen, because they don't have strong enough diplomatic ties with the heathen, they say that this is why we're suffering. They say this is why we're suffering. And so their answer to the suffering is that we need to go strengthen our diplomatic ties with them. We need to go and establish treaties with the wicked. And that way we can prosper as a people. They're not looking to Yahuah. They're looking to strengthen diplomatic ties with the wicked. When Yahuah told them clearly that this is not your friend, that they're your enemies. You see, do not look to strengthen the diplomatic ties with them. So this is what some of the men of Yashar'Al are doing. They're looking to go and strengthen diplomatic ties with the wicked. Okay, that's what they're looking to do. Going contrary to the word of Yahuah. So they go out and they said, this is what the men are doing, looking to go and strengthen these ties with the wicked. So this device pleased them well. This device. That's their device. You see. Then certain of the people were so forward hearing that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. You hear this? Mm-hmm. Some of these men, they went to the king, they went to the heathen king, who gave them license to do some of these very things. By the way, you know, it's a lot of mix-up going on here, and it's not until we get into the breakdown of the people here during this reign, because even Antiochus actually is a son of Yashar'Al, if I recall correctly. This is the king that they went to. The king who should be leading them back to Yahuah, he gave them license to go and do these things. Okay, this is where Yashar'Al and the heathen becomes quite entangled. And again, as time goes on, we're going to dig into this history. We're going to go over the timeline, and we're going to identify these people so we can see and know who they are and their role in our history. So we're going to go through a breakdown of this as time go on. This is not the reason why I came here today, though. I just want to highlight the role of the men of Yashar'Al that brought upon us our demise, that brought upon us our destruction. So I'm not really drilling into it today, but we will. We're going to look at these people and identify them and exactly who they are and the role they play in our history. Okay? So then certain of the people were so forward herein, they were so far gone that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Okay, this is the king now over Yashar'Al. He's a puppet king, is who Antiochus was. He was a puppet king, you see. And this puppet king over Yashar'Al gave these people of Yashar'Al license to do according to the ways of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise in Jerusalem. They built a place of worship in Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen. They went and built them a mega church in Jerusalem, you see, and made themselves uncircumcised, meaning that they stopped practicing circumcision as they were commanded, and forsook the set apart contract, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. They were bent on doing mischief. These are people of Yashar'Al now totally taking up the ways of the heathen. The men leading the charge. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, man of Yashar'Al, Antiochus, don't let the name fool you. He was a man of Yashar'Al. He thought to reign over Mitzrayim, but he was a puppet king. Okay? And I don't want to. I think I'm recalling this correctly. He was mixed. He became, because his mother, who was queen at one time, if I remember the history right, she got married to one of the Greeks, and that's how he became a half breed. He mixed now. Okay. And again, we're going to dig into this. Sometimes my memory, things get jumbled, but I think if I recall correctly, that's how it went. So he was a half-breed. Anyway, he had this desire to rule over Mitzrayim. He's a Seleucid here. He's operating under the Seleucid dynasty, and he wanted to take over Ptolemy in Egypt, which is another general of Alexander the Great, who is ruling in Egypt. So now you want to go and attack that, okay? So now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Mitzrayim, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Mitzrayim with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war. By the way, pay attention to that now. Went with a great navy. So I'll take note. Columbus wasn't the first person to sail on a ship. The Europeans weren't the first people to build ships. Okay, we see that, right? No, because I want to point these things out, because we, no matter who we are, we have all been told these lies. And so if you're a truth lover, this ain't about, this has nothing to do with race. This has to do with truth. I wanna dismantle the lies as we go, okay? Because we're told that Europeans were the first to build ships. The scriptures make it clear that's not true. That Columbus was the first to sail around the earth. Scriptures makes it clear that's not true. You see? So we have inherited many great lies. We're here to dispel the myths and refute the lies, you see. So, and after that, Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim. He returned again. Wait, let me back up a little bit. Verse 17. Wherefore he entered into Mitzrayim with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt, but Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. Now, this is also important to note when we think about Mashiach and being able to tell what Mashiach looked like. Because by the time Mashiach was born, it was the same people that was ruling in Yashar'Al that was also ruling in Mitzrayim. In other words, the Greeks and Romans, Greeks turned Romans, were ruling in Yashar'Al, and they were ruling in Mitzrayim, and yet Mashiach was able to run to Mitzrayim and hide out there, right? Okay. Now, thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. Verse 20, and after that, Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim. He returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yashar'Al and Jerusalem with a great multitude. Okay? Again, if I recall correctly, Antiochus was a half-breed, if I recall correctly. We're going to get into this, though, as time go on. And if I'm incorrect, the record will set that straight. But I'm trying to recall. I think he was a half-breed. But here now he goes up against the people of Yashar'Al to totally capture the land. Okay? Because Yashar'Al was still somewhat governing themselves, right? And entered proudly into the set-apart place. Okay, let me read again. And after that, Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim. He returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yashar'Al and Jerusalem with a great multitude. By the way, let me just check my what's the name? I know that what happened? Unbelievable. Fuse had kicked out on me, and I didn't realize it. Okay, I've got to get back on. Okay, bear with me here, family. I just realized that I was disconnected from Fuse. Oh, they can't hear me anyhow. Yes, okay.
This conference is being recorded.
Oh no, wrong room. Okay, let's try to get back.
The audio conference will now begin. This conference is being recorded.
Okay, my apologies there, family. I did not realize. Okay, let me make sure the family can hear me on Fuse. Bear with me just for a second. Okay. Yes, I was knocked off. I was knocked off for some reason there, and it seemed like a number of people were knocked off also. And so hopefully everyone can get back in. Don't know what happened, but I was knocked off, but it wasn't just me, but it was just about everyone, it seemed, was knocked off also. Let's see. All right. Okay. All right. Once again, to the family on YouTube for letting me know too. I didn't realize I was just talking and didn't realize that nobody on Fuse was hearing me. But to the for the note. All right. Well, we're going to try this again. Okay. We're going to try this again. You know, when you get too close to the truth, they disrupt things too. It's not accidental. I've seen it happen at during these times enough to know that it doesn't happen by accident. And so, but nonetheless, we gonna continue to press. Okay, they try to frustrate you. They try to wear you out and wear you down. Yahuah tell us that's what they would do. You see. All right, so we're going back to the text. Let's see. Okay, all right, so I'm going to start back in...
Aki?
Yes, go ahead, Aki.
I was just making sure I had connection because I had got knocked off there.
Yes, they booted us all out, Aki.
Yeah, they didn't want to hear it. Huh?
Yes.
There was something that I wanted to inject. As you was reading, I remember you was talking about Kittim and about the saying that they was going to do it. As far as the Kittim was the one that's going to put us some ships and all that situation.
Yes.
What's interesting is I was just reading, I think it was First Chronicles the other day, and it was naming all the names of the people, and it started from the fact. If I'm not mistaken, Kittim is a descendant of the fact.
Absolutely is.
Correct?
Absolutely is.
Interesting.
Yes. Absolutely is, Aki. Absolutely is.
So that debunks all that Edomite mess where the Caucasians came from Esau,
yes,
Ashu.
Yes. Yes, and that's what people miss. That's the thing that people miss. The division of the nations really show you, it debunks all of that stuff. You see, when you look into how the earth was divided, you see, people they forget about that part of it. You know, that nations was already set up, established, and so this Edomite doctrine, the nation. Caucasian nation was already established even before we came to Ashu, Esau, and all of that, you know. So again, keeping the scriptures in context will certainly expose the contradictions and false teachings. It's interesting. My wife and I was having a conversation about that this morning also. You know, something else too. So among the Jews, there are two. We know that there are two types of Jews, right? They're broken down into two groups. You have the Ashkenazi Jew and you have the Sephardic Jew. Well, the Sephardic Jew would come out of somebody that they call in the book of Bereshit, chapter 10, they call him Javan, right? They call him Javan, right? The Sephardic Jew are the Spanish-speaking Jews. So in Israel today, you have the president is Spanish, and then the prime minister is a regular Jew, representing the two types of Jews. But so you have the Spanish-speaking Jews come out of Javan, like Christopher Columbus, Spanish-speaking Jew. He come out of Javan, but what is Javan's real name? What would be Javan's real name? And if you look in the book of Bereshit, Genesis chapter 10, you see Javan, but what is his name? His name isn't Javan, right? His name wouldn't be Javan. What would his name be? His name would be Yahun. And in Spanish, they would say Juan. Juan, right? Spanish, they would say Juan. Okay? Again, even the name Yahun tells the story. Okay? Because Christopher Columbus comes out of Yafat also. The Spanish-speaking Jews come out of Yafat also. And that's where we see the name Javan. Okay? Okay? Yes. So Kittim is the descendant of Yahun or Juan, if you say it in Spanish. Okay? Kittim is the descendant of Juan. Okay? So the Greeks, what is their language family? Let's break this down. Let's follow the trail. Let's follow the, can't say follow the money. Let's follow the language. Latin. Latin. You see this? Latin. The Greeks, their language family is Latin. Okay? The Spaniards, to what language family do they belong? The Spaniards. Latin. Okay? So they're related to Juan, who is called Javan, okay? The Sephardic Jews, okay? Yafat, descendants of Yafat, okay? It all breaks down. Latinos, yes, indeed. You see, so that is, the scriptures really lay these things out, okay? But it's not until Yahuah opened the eyes of his people where we can follow the trail. It's very clear in scripture, you see. Okay? So, again, Yahuah has his elect in nations of the earth. He has the natural seed, and he will bring people out of other nations. But it is important that we understand and do not try to impose and replace what Yahuah has not put in place, or replace what he has put in place. You see. All right. So let's continue. Whereupon they built a place of worship, a mega church at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, stopped circumcising themselves, and forsook the set apart contract, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. This is people of Yashar'Al. Now, when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Mitzrayim, that he might have the dominion of two realms, two kingdoms. Wherefore he entered into Mitzrayim with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Mitzrayim. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Mitzrayim, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Mitzrayim, he returned again in the 143rd year, and went up against Yashar'Al and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the set apart place, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crown, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, the Haykal, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Okay, so Antiochus, it wasn't, again, I'm going to wait till I get back to that. I don't quite remember the details. If he was actually a half breed to Yashar'Al, or he was fully Greek. right? I don't quite remember. So I'll wait till I get back to that. I don't fully remember. Anyway, went back to Greece, to Kittim, okay? So that the princes and elders mourned, okay? Now, therefore, there was a great mourning in Yashar'Al, in every place where they were. So that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Now, what preceded this? This was Yashar'Al turning away from Yahuah, doing their own thing, okay? The men of Yashar'Al, the men of Yahuah, choosing evil over set apartness, choosing the way of the heathen over the ways of Yahuah, and yet the heathen had no pity on them. You see, every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Yahuah was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Yehudah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceably words unto them, peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, you sound familiar? Spake peaceable words, but it all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Yashar'Al. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive. But the women and children took they captive. They would kill the men, take the women and children captive, right? We see that all the time. Women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle. Then built they the city of Dahoud with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a transgressful, a disobedient nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. Or it was a place to lie in wait against the set apart place, and an evil adversary to Yashar'Al. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the set apart place, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers, and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. You hear that now? Yashar'Al, Jerusalem became desolate. Doesn't mean that people weren't dwelling there. Mean that the people of the place were no longer there. Her set apart place was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her esteem, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. All should be one people. Now, we live in America, a place noble for what you should say. How should we put it? A place that boasts itself on individualism. A place that prides itself on the fact that people should be free and free to be who they want to be and everything like that. But yet, when you begin to be who you are in respect to a people of Yahuah, you will be met with hate. You're met with hate. You're met with hate, ridicule, and no acceptance. They want us to be one people under their definition. You will be accepted by what they deem to be acceptable. Yes. Ah, that's right, Akut. A great melting pot, but we're the pot at the bottom holding all the people. You see, you will only be accepted if you want to live like them. And that's what was going on here. Okay? So he made this decree. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people. Listen, these racist people out here today who are supporting the murderous police, they talk about being one people. But the only way they will recognize you as being one people is if you ignore the wickedness being done to your people, say nothing about it, and go along with them. And that's the only way you will be accepted. These hateful murderers, that's how the way they see it. That's the way they see it. And that's the way they want you to see it. Join with us in our way of seeing things, and you'll be all right. And to join with them in their way of seeing things is to become a hater of your own people, is to become an oppressor of your own people. And that's exactly what was going on here. But where did it start? Started with men abandoning their proper roles. That's where it started. But one man is going to come up and he's going to step back into his proper role. And watch what Yahuah does. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, leave his Torah, leave the instructions of Yahuah. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of Yashar'Al consented to this, to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols and profaned Shabbat. For the king, now watch this now. This is the interesting part. They were still in the land. That's why Yahuah talk about them profaning Shabbat. Here it is, they're still dwelling in the land. You see? But they went with the command of the king over the command of Yahuah while they're in the land. And so they profaned Shabbat. They're in the land, but they disregarded the instructions of Yahuah even while they were in the land. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Yehudah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the Haykal, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and feast days, and pollute the set apart place and set apart people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beast, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law, the Torah, and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said, he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Yehudah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the Torah, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove Yashar'Al into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for cover. So the people of Yashar'Al who refused to go by the command of the king, now it's not just the king and his people that are chasing them, but you have people of Yashar'Al who have joined themselves to the king, who are now hunting down their own people, just like some of these cops. Listen, I've seen a couple cops on TV. You know what I call them? I call them King Coons. I found one the other day. I'd call him the coonest of coons because I thought he was the coonest of coons. So I had already given him that title, coonest of coons. So when I found some that was more cooner than they, I had no. The only thing left was to call him King Coon. But you have a lot of King Coons out there who are hunting down their own people, no different than the wicked is hunting down and speaking evil of and doing evil to their own people, just like they're doing now. They join themselves with the wicked against their own people. Yes, indeed. Made it like the United States. You see. Seeing this police chief talking, and if I'd closed my eyes and ignored his accent, or the way he talked, whatever way you put it, I would think that it was a Klansman talking, because he's in total denial of what his people is going through. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the Torah, and so they committed evils in the land, verse 52, and drove Yashar'Al. This is people of Yashar'Al who forsook Torah. Now this is interesting. Notice the distinction that Yahuah makes now. See the distinction that Yahuah makes? Because the people who forsook Torah is no longer identified as Yashar'Al. You have people who are trying to keep wicked people in Yashar'Al that are no longer Yashar'Al, because if you're not living to please Yahuah, you're not Yashar'Al. You see, even being the natural seed, you're a bastard. So notice the way this is written. In verse 52, then many of the people who were gathered unto them, people of Yashar'Al that were gathered onto the wicked, after they had forsaken Torah, it says, to wit, everyone that forsook Torah, the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove Yashar'Al into secret places, drove those who choose to stand with Yahuah into secret places, places of hiding, even wheresoever they could flee for cover. Now the 15th day of the moon, Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of Yehudah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent, this is people of Yashar'Al doing this, and when they had rent in pieces the books of Torah, which they found, they burnt them with fire, people of Yashar'Al joining with the wicked. And whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament, or if any committed the Torah, the king's command was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto Yashar'Al every month, as to many as were found in the cities. Now, the 25th day of the moon, they did sacrifice unto the idol altar, or Ishtar, upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Gad, that don't belong there. They put God, which was upon the altar of Yahuah. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Yashar'Al were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. So even though they were being put to death, and their children were being put to death because they choose to obey Yahuah and live by his instructions, there were still many in Yashar'Al who said, we're going to stand by the word of Yahuah. Okay? In spite of the persecution. Wherefore, they rather to die, that they might be defiled, might not be defiled with meat, and that they might not profane the set apart contract. So then they died. And there was very great wrath upon Yashar'Al. Again, how did the wrath come about? Because the men stopped being men. The men refused to stop doing what they were commanded to do. Right? And so hence now we see the wrath upon them. In those days arose Mattathias, or Mattatyahu. This is where they Greekify his name. In those days arose Mattatyahu, the son of Yahukanan, of the son of Shamaun, a priest of the sons of Arib, from Jerusalem, and dwelt in Madin. And he had 5 sons, Yahukanan called Cadiz, Shamaun called Tasi. This is their Greek names because of the Hellenization of the people. The oppressor always change our names. Yehuda was also called, who was called Maccabeus. Eleazar called Abaran, and Yahunathan, whose surname was Aphus. And when he saw the blasphemies that were committed in Yehuda and Jerusalem, he said, woe is me! Wherefore was I born to see this misery of my people and of the set apart city, and to dwell there, when it was delivered in the hand of the enemy, and the set apart place into the hand of strangers. Her Haykal is become a man as a man without esteem. Her esteemed vessels are carried away into captivity. Her infants are slain in the streets. Her young men with the sword of the enemy. What nation has not had a part in her kingdom and gotten of her spoils? All her ornaments are taken away. Of a free woman she has become a bondslave. And behold, our set apart place, even our beauty and our esteem is laid waste, and the heathen have profaned it. To what end, therefore, shall we live any longer? Then Mattatyahu and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. Now, this is a man who said, you know what? Enough is enough. He saw his people being destroyed, and many of them being slaughtered honorably, because they said, we're not going to defile the instructions of Yahuah. We're not going to profane ourselves, and we're not going to stop circumcising our children, so you might as well go ahead and slaughter us. And they did. Mattatyahu looked and he saw this, and he said, you know what, enough is enough. And he rent his clothes, him and his sons, and he cried out to Yahuah. He says, this cannot continue any longer. Then Mattatyahu and his sons rent their clothes and put on sackcloth and mourned very sore. This is a man who loved his people. In the meanwhile, the king's officers, such as compelled the people to revolt, came into the city, Madin, to take them sacrifice, to make them sacrifice. And when many of Yashar'Al came unto them, Mattatyahu also and his sons came together. Then answered the king's officers and said to Mattatyahu on this wise, you are a ruler and an honorable and great man in this city, and strengthened with sons and brethren. Now therefore come you first and fulfill the king's commandment. You see that? He recognized that this was a man of influence over his people. And so he figured, if I can get you to step up first and partake in the abomination, then it will be easy to get everybody else to partake. But on this day, he chose the wrong man. Like as all the heathen have done. Yeah. and the men of Yehudah also, and such as remain at Jerusalem. So shall you and your house be in the number of the king's friends, and you and your children shall be honored with silver and gold and many rewards. But what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and to lose his soul? You see? So he tells him, I see that you're a man who are well respected. You have some strong sons and you have many people behind you. And so you step up, come partake in this abomination. Not only will you be able to partake and live, but we're going to pay you. The king is going to pay you for doing this. And that's what they have done to our leaders, family. They have paid off our leaders. They have paid off our leaders, and they've stepped up and they've partaken in the abomination, and they've caused many of our people who look to them to fall to the abomination. Now, there's nothing new. The same way that the enemy did it then, the enemy continue to do today, and our people continue to fall for the same old thing. But at some point, there's got to come someone who recognize and who take a stand and say, you know what? Even if it cost me my life, I'm not doing it. You see? And so Yahuah stood up to the king and his men, who's persuading him, and they even bribing him, telling him, we're going to pay you. Just step up and do it. We'll give you silver and gold and many rewards. Then Yahuah answered and said, and spake with a loud voice, though all the nations that are under the king's dominion obey him, and fall away every one from the belief of their fathers, and give consent to his commands, the king's commands, yet will I and my sons and my brethren walk in the contract of our fathers. Yahuah forbid that we should forsake the Torah and the ordinances. We will not hearken to the king's words to go from our belief, either on the right hand or the left. Now, when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Yahudim in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Madin, according to the king's command. So just as soon as he got done talking, here comes Akun. Forget him. He don't want to do it. I'm going to do it. And so he went up, stepped up to sacrifice, to honor the king. Which thing, when Yahuah saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. Yahuah cut him down. Cut him down. And then I could hear some other people today, if one should do that. Well, I thought Black Lives Matter. Why are you going to do that to his own? No. That one has now become a stranger to the nation of Yashar'Al, just as the heathen is, you see. Also, the king's commissioner who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time. So Yahuah, once he cut down that one of Yashar'Al that was eager to go and obey the king, there's a sound coming in there, family. You could just check your line, make sure if it's a phone line, make sure it's muted for me. Just check to make sure your line's muted for me. Trying to see if I can figure out where exactly it's coming from. Bear with me here just for a second. Can't really tell. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Okay, that was Danny Al's line. Okay, I got it now. Okay. All right. So Oh, fuse is frozen, Akut. Okay, give me just a second. Let me try to get it back. Okay. Okay, Keith Franklin said it's fine there. All right. Now when he had left speaking, verse 23, these words, there came one of the Yahudim in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar which was at Medin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing when Mattatyahu saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran and slew him upon the altar. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at that time, and the altar he pulled down. Thus he dealt zealously for the Torah of Yahuah, like as Phinehas, I'm not sure what that should be, I'm thinking Phinehas, did unto Zambri, the son of Salam. And Mattatyahu cried throughout the city with a loud voice, saying, whosoever is zealous of the Torah and maintain the contract, let him follow me. So he and his sons fled into the mountains and left all that ever they had in the city. Then many that sought after justice and judgment went down into the wilderness to dwell there, both they and their children and their wives and their cattle, because afflictions increased sore upon them. Now when it was told the king's servant and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of Dahoud, that certain men who had broken the king's commandments were gone down into the secret places in the wilderness, they pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath day, on Shabbat. Why on Shabbat? Because they were banking on the fact that Yashar'Al, that many people of Yashar'Al would not fight to defend themselves on Shabbat. You see, now they're still in the land, and they figure, okay, Shabbat, they're not going to defend themselves. And there were many people refused to defend themselves, to fight on Shabbat, because they say it's the Shabbat, as we're going to see. We're not going to fight. It was an honorable thing to do. But was it? Were they right in thinking that if they should fight, if the men should rise up and fight to defend their children and their women, that Yahuah was going to hold this against them? No, they were wrong in that. It was a noble thing to do, but it wasn't a wise thing to do, you see? Because if everybody in the nation had taken the same stand, then there would be no Yashar'Al. And so praise Yahuah that everybody did not take the same stand. It was a noble thing to do, but it was not a wise thing to do. The enemy was counting on them doing that, and some of them did, and the enemy just rolled over them. Again, as men of Yashar'Al, should we just sit by and allow people to roll over us continually? No. You have people today who say we should, and that's not right. That's wrong. You see, I believe that it's a coward who, when the enemy come up against us, just sit back and say, oh, you should just let them have their way. Yahuah is going to deliver us. Well, how does Yahuah deliver? Don't Yahuah strengthen the hands of his servant in order to deliver his people? You see. Now, he says, now when it was told the king's servants, and the host that was at Jerusalem in the city of Dahoud, that certain men had broken the king's commandment. We're not worried about breaking the king's commandment. Who is he? The king? We don't even see him as king. Yahuah is our king. We're gone down into the secret places in the wilderness. They pursued after them a great number, and having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on Shabbat. And they said unto them, let that which you have done before suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and you shall live. So you see, these people, they want worship. They want Yashar'Al to worship them. They say, listen, we're going to forget what you did. We're going to forget the fact that you rose up and then you took off running and you refused to obey. We're going to give you another choice. We want you to bow down and worship the king. And we will forget that this incident ever occurred. Number one, they will never forget that it ever occurred. The wicked do not forget anything. You see. So that's number one. Do not be duped into thinking that they will forget. The wicked forgets not, the wicked forgive not, even when there is nothing that you need to be forgiven for. To stand up and to defend yourself when you're being treated wrongly, you should not have to apologize to anybody for having defended yourself. You should not have to apologize to anybody for having to stand up and speak out against wickedness. And yet I see many of our people who are in high places, when they dare to say something about the injustice, then the king says, you need to take that back. And our people say, you know what? Next day you see them on television. I misspoke. I never meant to say that. Wasn't what I was trying to say. Really? Notice what happened here. The man who chose to stand on the side of right, the people who chose to stand on the side of Yahuah, who chose to stand with his Torah, you notice what they did? The scripture says that they left the city and they left all that they had in the city. They weren't so tied to stuff that the stuff would keep them compromising. Some people are so concerned with their stuff, with their paychecks, with their money, that they will, the moment an apology is ordered, they're quick to apologize. Yeah. These people left everything. They said, we're going to defend our Constitution. We're going to defend our way of life. We're going to obey Yahuah rather than some smelly, stinky king. You see. I like that. Some bows and some bets. Yes. So they pursued them. And they pursued after them a great number. Pay attention to that now, a great number. And having overtaken them, they camped against them and made war against them on the Sabbath. And they said unto them, let that which you have done here before suffice. Come forth and do according to the commandment of the king, and you shall live. But they said, we will not come forth, neither will we do the king's commandment to profane the Sabbath day. So then they gave them the battle with all speed. Howbeit they answered them not, neither cast they a stone at them. So here now, they didn't mind fighting them when it wasn't the Sabbath. This is this group. They didn't mind fighting the wicked while it wasn't the Sabbath. And again, what they did was a noble thing. They honored Yahuah's Shabbat. They didn't want to profane the Shabbat. At least they perceived this as profaning the Shabbat, but it's not. A thing of necessity is not a profanation of Shabbat. So these people came against them to fight them on Shabbat. And what they were betting on, what they were counting on, was that they were not going to respond because it is Shabbat, and they were right. This group that they ran into did not respond because it was Shabbat. It was the Shabbat day. And so basically what they did was they sat on their hands. The men did nothing to defend their family. Did nothing to defend their women and children. They sat on their hands. And what did the wicked do? You would think that, now if that was me, And if I go to fight somebody and they're not fighting back, I'd just give up. Because that would be just totally bold, brutal, and man, how can you sit there and just start hacking somebody and not fighting back? They're not fighting you, but you're so wicked to just slaughter them. There is no fight. How wicked can you be? Well, I watch these police videos, and it's the same thing I see. You have people not doing anything, and they just slaughter you for no reason. You have done nothing. As a matter of fact, you not doing nothing angers them even more. Look at that man in Florida a couple days ago. The cop showed up. He's trying to help this young man who have mental and emotional problems. This guy is sitting in the street, leave the facility where he's at. This young man with whatever it's called, I forget what it's called now. Leave the facility where he is, and he is sitting in the street playing with a toy car because he is forget what it is that he has, right? Autistic, yeah, he's autistic, and he's sitting in the street playing with a toy car. A black man shows up who works with him, is his therapist. The therapist show up, trying to help him, trying to bring him to safety. And so what he does is to calm him down, because autistic people can get excited. To calm him down, he sits in the street with him, trying to talk him into getting up. Now, had to be some racist resident seeing them in the street, call the cops, and falsely reported, just as they falsely reported when they called the cops about Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old that the police showed up and in less than 20 seconds killed him. In less than 10 seconds killed him. So a racist resident called their KKK cop friend, say that there's a man holding a gun in the middle of sitting in the street. KKK cop showed up. And even though the man, when the cop showed up, he decided to lay down, trying to make a point that I mean no harm, got his hands in the air, KKK cop shoot him anyway. Then KKK cop said that his hands was not in the air. But then cell phone video showed up, showing that his hands were in the air. Then KKK cop says, I don't know why I did it. It was an accident. Trying to sound sincere. You think there's any sincerity in that? KKK cop is KKK cop. KKK cop meant to murder the man, because KKK cop is that wicked. The fact that the man is laying there with his hand in the air angers him, because he's not giving him a reason to shoot him. So now you have reversed anger. You have anger that comes from a lack of provocation. And so he shoots anyway. Yes, indeed. Thankfully didn't die. Absolutely a key. Exactly, Akut. They wanted to look like you're resisting. And that's their strategy. But this man is laying there, hands in the air, doing nothing. And that angers the KKK cop. That's the kind of wickedness, the same kind of wickedness we see from our adversaries, from our enemies back then. Same kind of wickedness we're seeing today. Now I want to say this. If our people think that by sitting on your hands it's going to change, it's not. There must come a time where the Maccabees rise up. You see. Now, but said, now, albeit they answered them not, so they did nothing. So they attacked them with speed. They disagreed. They said, we're not going to apologize, and we're not going to join you. So they attacked them with speed, but they did not respond. Neither cast they a stone at them, nor stopped the places where they lay hid. They didn't even try to block the doorways because it's Shabbat. They felt like, well, Yahuah is going to deliver us. That's really what they felt. They felt this Shabbat, we're not going to do anything. Yahuah is going to deliver us. Got a lot of people thinking that way today. Yahuah strengthened the hand of his people in their deliverance. You see. Now, so they rose up against them in battle on the Sabbath, and they slew them with their wives and children and their cattle to the number of 1,000 people. Now when Yahuah and his friends understood hereof, they mourned, for they were right sore. And one of them said to another, if we all do as our brethren have done, and fight not for our lives and Torah against the heathen, they will now quickly root us out of the earth. At that time, therefore, they decreed, saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against them. Neither will we die all, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. Then came there unto him a company of Assyrians, who were mighty men of Yashar'Al. Pay attention to this now. It's not the right words that's being used here. This isn't the right words. But pay attention to this, because people misunderstand this in the scriptures often. When Yashar'Al, because Yashar'Al settled in different places, they're identified in the scriptures by the names of the places where they settle. And people might think that this is not Yashar'Al, that these people are not Yashar'Al, just like Hannibal that we spoke about. As you continue to read here in the book of Maccabeus, you'll see the story of Hannibal, okay? And how he defeated the Romans. It's right here in the book, okay? So, here come these men, who were mighty men of Yashar'Al, even all such as were voluntary, devoted unto Torah. Also, all they that fled for persecution joined themselves unto them, and were a stay unto them. So they joined their forces and smote sinful men, disobedient men in their anger, and wicked men in their wrath. Excuse me. But the rest fled to the heathen for cover. So you see what they're doing? They say, okay, you wicked of Yashar'Al, you're going to face the same fate as the wicked who oppress us. You're not a part of us. And we're going to deal with you the same way that we're going to deal with them. You see? Because you're not for us. And if you're not for us, you're against us. So they joined their forces and smote the disobedient men in their anger and wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for cover. Then Yahuah and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars. And what children whosoever they found within the coast of Yashar'Al uncircumcised, those they circumcised valiantly. They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the Torah out of the hand of the heathen, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the transgressor to triumph. The Gentiles here are the people of Yashar'Al who turned away from Yahuah. So they recovered the Torah out of their hand, and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the transgressor to triumph. Now when the time drew near that Yahuah should die, he said unto his sons, now has pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction, and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be you zealous for the Torah, and give your lives for the contract of your fathers. Now, family, if we continue to read, Yahuah rose up to fight against the Greeks / Romans, because it's the Greeks who became the Romans, basically. He rose up to fight against them, he and his sons and men of Yashar'Al, people of Yashar'Al. Microphone open there, family. Men and women of Yashar'Al, right? So men and women of Yashar'Al, where was I at? I lost my thought. Okay, so let me go back to the text. I forget. Yes, okay. I think I remember what I was saying. So 7 years after Yahuah rose up to fight against the wicked king and against his people who joined with the wicked king, it came 7 years after one of his sons would take the reins in Yashar'Al. You see, but they had to defeat the Romans. Now, so what's going on here now? They pursued also after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hand. So they recovered the Torah out of the hand of the Gentiles and out of the hand of kings. Neither suffered they the transgressor to triumph. Now when the time drew near that Yahuah should die, he said unto his sons, now has pride and rebuke gotten strength, and the time of destruction and the wrath of indignation. Now therefore, my sons, be you zealous for the Torah, and give your lives for the contract of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time, so that you receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, trustworthy in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for set apartness? Yahusha, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment and was made ruler over Mitzrayim. Phinehas, our father, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the contract of an everlasting priesthood. Yahusha, for fulfilling the word, was made a judge in Yashar'Al. Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land. Dahoud, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Yahuah, for being zealous and fervent for the Torah, was taken up into Shamayim. Ananias, Azariah, Mishael, by believing, were delivered out of the flame. Daniel, for his innocency, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And thus consider you throughout all ages, that none that put their trust in him shall be overcome. Fear not then the words of a disobedient man, for his esteem shall be dung and worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he shall not be found, because he is returned into his dust, and his thought is come to nothing. Wherefore you, my sons, be valiant and show yourselves men in behalf of the Torah, for by it shall you obtain esteem. And behold, I know that your brother Shamaun is a man of counsel. Give ear unto him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Yehudah Maccabeus, he had been mighty and strong, even from his youth up. Let him be your captain, and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe Torah, and avenge you the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen, and take heed to the commandments of Torah. So he baruched them and was gathered to his fathers. And he died in the 146th year, and his sons buried him in the graves of his fathers at Madin. And all Yashar'Al made great lamentation for him. Now, there are a couple things of this I want to say to our men. Yahuah, he started a revolt because he loved his people. And he loved Yahuah even more. You know the thing that gave him strength? The thing that guided him? Notice what he recalled as he was getting ready to go to rest. And he called his sons to the baruch them. He recalled the great patriarchs of Yashar'Al. He recalled their great acts and their great belief. And he called upon his sons to remember them. When you see a people who have forgotten their past, a people who have forgotten their heritage, a people who have forgotten their patriarchs, has nothing to live for, has nothing to look forward to, has nothing to stand for. You see, it is not until we recognize and realize and see the great cloud of witnesses who have gone before us, the sacrifice that they have paid, the lives that they have lived. And it's not until we begin to embrace it and recognize it to be that of our own, to recognize that their sacrifices was made on our behalf. It's not until then that as men that we begin to see that our life is of value, that our people's lives are of value, and that it is important for us to instruct them and to instruct our children in as much as we can to guide them in the ways of Yahuah. To teach them that we have something to be proud of. To teach them that we have a history, a rich history, you see. And that our lives have value also. It's not until we realize that Yahuah is greater than any man and any situation, and that it is more important to fear Yahuah rather than man, that the men of Yashar'Al would rightly stand up, just as Yahuah did. And he would stand up and he would take his place as a man, even though so many of the men of Yashar'Al had abandoned ship, had gone out of the way to even make contracts with the heathen, and have even turned their backs on their own people and begin to fight against their own people. But somebody stood up. Yahuah stood up. And he recognized that the word of Yahuah was not given, the constitution of Yahuah was not given to a people because they were going to be destroyed utterly. He recognized that a constitution was given because if a constitution exists, then therefore a nation must be in existence. And so when the wicked came to fight against them, even on the Shabbat, Yahuah said, it's not going to go down on my watch, but I'm going to fight. And Yahuah is going to give me strength to fight. He did not simply sit on his hands as his neighbors did, who were well-meaning nonetheless, but who misunderstood the word of Yahuah and who misunderstood the workings of Yahuah. He decided, I'm not just going to sit on my hand, but what he did was he fasted and he prayed and he asked Yahuah to strengthen their hand. And Yahuah strengthened them and gave them victory over the adversary. You see, and the men of Yashar'Al, as men of Yashar'Al, we got to recognize that Yahuah expects for us to be lovers of our family, protectors of our family, but not just our family. It begins with the family, but ultimately it's a nation. You see, it's a nation. We've got to begin to see ourselves as a nation. Yashar'Al during the time of the Maccabees was splintered, like I said at the beginning. But Maccabees was able to look beyond their current position and their current situation. And he was able to look back at the word of Yahuah and see what they needed to be, who they're supposed to be. And that's what he fought for. Didn't fight for individuals. He fought for a nation. Kana did not give up her only son for the sake of individualism. She gave him up for the benefit of a nation. Yashar'Al have got to stop being self-centered. Yashar'Al have got to stop thinking about itself, ourselves, all the time, and think about us from the perspective of a nation. When one hurt, we all truly do hurt. I wanted to go back to the book of Samuel, but we're running out of time. It's almost 7 o'clock. I'm not going to keep you any longer. I wanted to go back to Samuel chapter 4 to show again what happened when one individual mess up or a couple individual mess up, how it affects a nation. And when you have a few individuals who are willing to rise up, how it can change things for a nation. We see that we only read 2 chapters here in the book of Maccabees. If we should read both books, it would be amazing and encouraging to see what happened, because one man chose to rise up and he had the support of his sons and the people, other men of Yashar'Al. I wanted to go back to Samuel for us to look at what happened when one man mess up and what happened when one man stand up. But we're out of time because it's getting late. I don't want to hold you any longer, but nonetheless, it is my hope that our study today has been a barakah to you, family. And again, we're going to dig into these books. We're going to look at the history of Yashar'Al, and I'm going to point out to you how they have whitewashed our history, but we have a history to be proud of. And so, Yahuah willing, we'll get to that in time. But I'm going to stop here for now, family. And before we close, I'll open up the mic to any comments or questions.
Aki,
Yes, go ahead, Aki.
Shabbat Shalom once again. Another great lesson and an encouragement to all Yashar'Al, not only to the men but to also our women, that we stand for our people, and not only for our people but for our families.
Indeed, Aki.
And I'll just say what a great lesson, and I would say that Yahuah is speaking to us and he's talking to us,
Indeed.
letting us know what's going on. I just praise Yahuah for speaking to us today and giving us wisdom, leading us and guiding us today.
Praise you.
And there was a question I was wanting to ask him. Nevertheless, it'll come to me. But I just want to comment on that and say Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Be encouraged, and it's all love to everyone, and to Yashar'Al today. And I say Shabbat Shalom, and I am releasing the mic.
Praise Yahuah. Praise Father Aki, to the Rabbah, and to Yahuah truly be all esteem. And to Aki, frankly, no, it stopped, Aki. The sun is back out, and now the humidity seemed like it got higher. So, no, but it's not raining any longer. Praise Yahuah, Akut Amuna, Akut Kaz. Praise Yahuah. Family, love and appreciate you all, and just continue to be strong in Yahuah and in the power of his might. I see Aki Keith. See your flag, Aki. Please go ahead, Aki.
Shabbat Shalom, Aki.
Shabbat Shalom to you, Aki. Great to hear you.
Same here. I got a question.
Yes.
When you were talking about Jabin, did you already have that on YouTube already? How you went through like the languages and all that?
You know what? I've done lessons on it, but I don't think any of them are posted to YouTube. I have some recordings on Fuse, I'm sure, from times past that I haven't posted to YouTube where I've touched on that. But none is on YouTube, Aki.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking forward to that. Because I know that's going to be like deep details. So
Yes.
that'll be real.
Indeed. And as a part of going through that history that I was talking about there, I think it'll demand us going over that. So I'm looking forward to that, Aki. I intend to do so, and going back to a timeline, a timeline of our people to kind of put things in perspective. It helps to give better understanding. So I'm looking forward to us doing that.
Yeah, and also to see how the other nation, well, the white nation, how they was already into being, as you were saying.
Yes.
So I think that would really help us out a lot.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Tada.
Existent. Yes, you're welcome, Daki. Praise Yahuah. All right. Well, once again, it is always great to hear you. I love hearing my Akeem on the mic. It is indeed, when a lion hear a lion, it's an encouraging thing. And so, praise Yahuah. Okay.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can, Akut Mac.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you, Akut.
It's for the wonderful message today for me. Thank you.
Praise Yahuah. Praise Yahuah. It's wonderful to hear you. I haven't heard you in a while.
I heard you.
Yes. Well, praise Father. Praise Yahuah. You're able to hear us clearly?
I hear you.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well,
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It's just I hear a little bit of in Jamaica we'd say the old time TV. They talk about rice grain.
Yeah. Right. Let me take off this maybe the thing that I have on my ears. Let me take it off and run the phone.
Okay.
Let me see. Try this. Okay. Unplug it and you can hear me better now, right?
Oh yes.
Oh, okay. That doesn't do no good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I wanted to ask you just a quick question before you go. I know you have to go now, but this I have to ask you before you go.
Mm-hmm.
You understand my Jamaican accent?
Yes.
Sister tell me last week that I must speak patois for her. I would not like you to speak it for her, not me. She said, "Oh, you speak patois." So I did speak a little.
Yeah.
But she don't understand a word I said.
Yes, that's the problem.
But I know you understand me.
Yes.
Oh, okay, you're a good teacher. I'm glad I've been using you.
Oh, praise Father.
Praise Father. But I'm asking you this. Because my daughter, she went to marry to someone different.
Mm-hmm.
And do I have to blame for that?
No, well, no, you can't. No, you're not. You're not. You can't be blamed and shouldn't take blame for that.
My daughter tell me that I have to. It's on my head.
No, Akut. Let me go over some scriptures with you right now, and don't take that on. And you can't be blamed for that. That's not right. That's wrong. So let me go to what Yahuah's word has to say. Okay, I'm going to Ezekiel chapter 18. Give me just a sec. The question was her daughter entered into another marriage, and
somebody different from
somebody different from who she was married to before,
right?
And their daughter is telling her that is on her head, that's a transgression that she should be blamed for, that she must be blamed for. So the question is, can she be blamed for that? Okay, so if this is a case of transgression, no. And I'll read the scriptures. Let me go to the scriptures here. I'm going to put it on the screen. Ezekiel chapter 18. Now there are many scriptures that is similar to this, but I'm going to go to Ezekiel Yahuah chapter 18. So let me put that up on the screen and we're going to read it.
All right, that's good. I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm not to be blamed for that because she won't be guilty that she is on me.
Yes.
And I'm not to be blamed for that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Do not take on somebody else's burden at all, Aku.
No, because she picked her choice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's see. Chapter 18 of Ezekiel. And again, this is not the only text, but I'm going to read from this one.
Okay. I don't keep you long.
Yes. And the word of Yahuah came to me saying, what do you mean when you use this proverb concerning the land of Yashar'Al, saying, the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and the children's teeth are blunted? As I live, declares the sovereign Yahuah, you shall no longer use this proverb in Yashar'Al. See, all beings are mine. The being of the Father as well as the being of the Son is mine. The being that is sinning, transgressing, shall die. But if a man is righteous and shall do right ruling and righteousness, if he has not eaten on the mountains, nor lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Yashar'Al, nor defiled his neighbor's wife, nor comes near a woman during her uncleanness, if he does not oppress anyone, does return to the debtor his pledge, does not commit robbery, does give his bread to the hungry, and covers the naked with garment, if he does not lend on interest or take increase, turns back his hand from righteousness, executes right ruling in truth between man and man, if he walks in my laws, and he has guarded my right rulings in truth, he is righteous. He shall certainly live, declares the sovereign Yahuah. But if he has brought forth a son who is a robber or a shedder of blood, who does any of these, whereas he himself did not do any of these, that also he has eaten on the mountains. He has eaten on the mountains or defiled his neighbor's wife. If he has oppressed the poor and needy, has committed robbery, he does not return a pledge, has lifted his eyes to the idols or did abomination, if he has lent on interest or taken increase, shall he live? He shall not live. If he has done any of these abominations, he shall certainly die. His blood is up on him. But see, if he has brought forth a son who sees all the sins that his father has done, but he fears and does not do likewise, has not eaten on the mountains, and has not lifted his eyes to the idols of the house of Yashar'Al, has not defiled his neighbor's wife, has not oppressed anyone, nor withheld a pledge, nor committed robbery, has given his bread to the hungry, and covered the naked with a garment, turns back his hand from wronging the poor, and he has not taken interest or increase, has executed right rulings and walked in my Torah, he shall not die for the crookedness of his father. He shall certainly live. His father, because he used oppression, robbed his brother, and did what is not good among his people, see, he shall die for his crookedness. And you said, why should the son that bear the crookedness, and you said, why should the son not bear the crookedness of the father? But the son has done right ruling and righteousness. He has guarded all my Torah, and he does them. He shall certainly live. The being who sins shall die. The son shall not bear the crookedness of the father, nor the father bear the crookedness of the son. The righteousness of the righteous is upon himself, and the wrongness of the wrong is upon himself. But the wrong, if he turns from all his transgressions, which he has done, and he shall guard all my Torah, and shall do right ruling and righteousness, he shall certainly live. He shall not die. All the transgressions which he has done shall not be remembered against him. In his righteousness that he has done, he shall live. Have I any displeasure in the death of the wrong, declares the sovereign Yahuah? It is not that he should turn from his ways and live. Is it not that he should turn from his ways and live? But when a righteous one turns away from his righteousness and does unrighteousness according to all the abominations that the wrong one has done, shall he live? All his righteousness which he has done shall not be remembered. For his trespass which he has committed, and for his sin which he has committed, for them he shall die. And you said, the way of Yahuah is not right. Hear now, O house of Yashar'Al, is my way not right? Is it not your ways that are not right? When a righteous one turns away from his righteousness and does unrighteousness, and he dies in it, it is because of his unrighteousness which he has done that he dies. And when the wrong turns away from the wrong which he has done, and he does right ruling and righteousness, he keeps himself alive. Because he sees and turns away from all the transgressions which he has done, he shall certainly live, he shall not die. And the house of Yashar'Al have said, the way of Yahuah is not right. Are my ways not right, O house of Yashar'Al? Is it not your ways that are not right? Therefore I judge you, O house of Yashar'Al, everyone according to his ways, declares the sovereign Yahuah. Repent and turn back from your transgressions, and let not crookedness be a stumbling block to you. Cast away from you all the transgressions by which you have transgressed, and make for yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. For why should you die, O house of Yashar'Al? For I have no pleasure in the death of one who dies, declares the sovereign Yahuah. So turn back and live. Okay, so can you hear me there, Akul? I'm not sure what that sound is. Yeah, not sure what that sound is. Might be some feedback coming in. Yeah, yeah, there's some. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. You might have to put your headset back on. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can hear me. You might have to put your headset back on. Wait. Okay, that wasn't yours, Akut. Let me see. Okay, give me just a second. Okay. Yeah, so if you could turn your speaker down a little bit for me, Akut. It's creating a lot of feedback. I'm sorry, it's creating some confusion. Yeah, so to say that it's just wrong, and that one person basically transgression. I think I got disconnected from Fuse.
This conference is being recorded.
Okay, I think I'm back. I got disconnected there from Fuse somehow, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, but yeah, that's not on your head, and that's what Yahuah is making clear in Ezekiel chapter 18, and in many other places we find in Scripture also. And so yes, chapter 18. So Akut, you don't have to don't let anybody put that on you. It's not yours to wear.
Okay.
All right.
Actually, have a wonderful week, and your family. And it was nice to hear you.
Yes, praise Father, Akut.
Okay, it was good for that message today. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful week.
Praise Yahuah.
You talk so many times.
Yes.
I'll call you back sometime in the week when you have the time.
Yes.
Shalom.
Okay, Akut. Shalom, shalom. Praise Yahuah.
Hello.
All right. Well, once again, family, it's been a baraka spending this Shabbat with you all, and we certainly give Yahuah praise and esteem, and we say Tuda for this opportunity for us to come together in His Word once again. We truly, truly Barak Yahuah. So if there are no other comments or questions, we're going to prepare to close out. Okay. Let me see. Okay. There is something coming from Aki Daniel. His phone is acting up. I don't think he recognized it. So I had to mute you, Aki. I hope you weren't trying to get on. It keep tapping for some reason. I had to mute the line. We're going to prepare to close out here. Family.
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Just one more and then we leave. I know we've been long. There's just one question. I did remember that. What I was going to say is I don't know if you saw it on my Facebook, but I had there was a post on there about, I don't know the guy's name, but it was talking about Mount Calvary. Mm-hmm. And apparently what happened was, I guess in the video I was watching it was kind of interesting because he was talking about Mount Calvary. Where he was at, I guess it was built by Constantine's mother, and it was built, and it said it's supposed to be Mount Calvary. What it was supposed to be doing, built over the spot where they were saying that the crucifixion was there, and somehow they built that over that. But he said that was not, that was not the correct place, and he was trying to teach his people. He did say Yahuah. He said Yeshua, but he did say Yahuah. But anyway, he was talking about something that was interesting. He was talking about the skull, where it was supposed to be where he was hung on the tree. And what he was saying is what I didn't know, and I'm trying to figure out if this is correct or not. That skull was called the skull where it was supposed to be Adam was supposed to be buried there, which is interesting. I was like, oh, so Adam was buried where Yahusha was supposed to be hung on a tree. Where I guess it was supposed to say that because he's the second Adam. I was trying to see if that was accurate. I haven't looked at it yet, looked it up yet.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you if you heard of that.
I've heard. I know that the Mount Calvary is a fraud. I know that, but I haven't actually heard that that the actual place where Yahusha was hung, that it's where Adam was buried. So I really don't know anything of that, Aki. I don't know. Like you, I'm right in the place where you are. I know the only thing I do know. I know that the Christians, they erected a lot of false sites, but I don't know that that about the burial place of Adam. I don't know if that is so.
Okay, because I know that he was on point far as the Mount Calvary. That's what he was saying. He was saying pretty much. But that's why it's like, I know that I think I believe where he was buried. I mean, where he was hung at was supposed to be what the Mountain of Skull. Was supposed to be called the Skull Mountain. And he named it. I can't remember. I had to watch the video again, but it was posted and I saved it. But I was just like, oh, that was interesting that he was buried he was hung on the tree in the same in the burial site of Adam. Interesting.
Yeah, that would certainly be interesting. Yes,
that would be kind of an interesting study.
Yes.
So I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't know if you heard that or not.
Yes. Yes. Tuda, Aki, Tuda for sharing. I'm not familiar with whether or not that is actual, if it's factual or not. I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't. But I'll dig into it. I'll see what what I can what I can find on that. All right. Once again, Tuda for sharing, Aki, and for bringing that to our attention, and Tuda to you all, family, for all of your participation and for your patience. Again, I want to emphasize that. I want to say Tuda for your patience, because
not coming from your heart.
Praise Father Akut to the. And if it wasn't for you and your patience, your willingness to sit here, there would be no fellowship. And I praise Yahuah for that. I truly do. I praise Yahuah for you and for your desire for His word and your patience and for your input. Well, we're going to prepare to close out, family. I've held you long. I'm not going to hold you any longer. So we're going to prepare to close out here today, and Yahuah willing, I will be seeing all of you once again soon. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to pray as we prepare to close. Praise Yahuah. Praise Father. Hallelujah, Yahuah. Yahuah, we thank and praise you for yet another Shabbat. We thank you for bringing us together from all the places dispersed, for making it possible for us to assemble and to study, to eat from your word, to be nourished and replenished. We praise you, Yahuah. We say Tudah for your promises that never dies. Hallelujah. And we praise you for strength that comes from your word. We pray, Yahuah, that you would continue to barak and favor your people, strengthen the afflicted and the oppressed. Yahuah, I pray that you would remember those who are sick and suffering even now. Pray that you would look upon your people with favor, Yahuah, and continue to show compassion unto us and deliver us. We pray, Yahuah, that you would come quickly and that you would restore your people, restore your set apartness. We pray. We desire for you to rule over us, Yahuah. We desire for you to be our king, Yahuah, our reigning king here in the earth. And so we recognize what it is that we gave up when we asked for a king after that of the other nations. We recognize, Yahuah, that we messed up. And so forgive us, we pray, and restore unto us our joy, your joy, the joy of Yahuah, which is our strength. Restore unto us our land. Do this, we pray. Let your favor be upon us continually. In Yahusha's name. Amen. Hallelujah. Family, may Yahuah barak you and keep you. May Yahuah lift up his face upon you and show favor unto you. May Yahuah cause his face to shine upon you and give you his shalom. May the name of Yahuah be upon you all. Amen. Once again, family, love and appreciate you all. And Leila Tub to you all. Signing off, family. May Yahuah barak you this week. Shalom.